Do you feel like on days when you haven't slept enough, it does impact the quality of your work?
What is the quality of work that you're doing? How focused are you? Do you work out well or not? Right?
Game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what we do usually is that we keep a very strict 8-hour window. Whatever reason you have not been able to catch on those 7 hours of sleep for a very long time.
Doesn't make you sound cool, is not sustainable in the long run, and lack of it will do no great impact in terms of even if your work basically, right? Like cutting down of 2 hours of sleep will mean 10 or 11 hours of mediocre work.
How much does that keep you on your toes with maintaining your own health?
What's actually going on inside my body? And I would probably say the four major pillars of optimal health are nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress, right? These are the four pillars.
What do you do with your mind that has so many thoughts that's just running
Yeah.
with very high energy?
I don't lose my mind, for example, if somebody gets late, or because I think I have so many things to do with myself that somebody getting late by X number of minutes hardly bothers me, because it's like precious time which I'm getting with myself.
One thing that you wish everyone knew about sleep but is not out there.
People say that आपको एक certain time पे उठना ज़रूरी है basically, right? But I think एक certain time पे सोना ज़रूरी है. If you just change the habit of if you switch your mindset from wanting to wake up at a certain time to wanting to sleep at a certain time, I think your day will get sorted automatically basically, right? Just sleep on time basically. That's
Hi, I'm Chavi, and you're welcome to this episode of Speaking of Sleep, a podcast where we start conversations on sleep, productivity, and leadership. In today's episode, we're going to review the sleep gym, and we're going to look at sleep from the lens of a founder that we've recently worked with. Today, we have on this podcast Sahil Pruthi. Sahil is the founder of Livify, which is an organization that's helping thousands of Indians improve their health, manage and reverse lifestyle disorders like obesity, diabetes, and PCOS. Many of us have also seen Sahil on Shark Tank Season 1, where he delivered a fantastic pitch. And after working with him on the sleep coaching program, what I truly admire about him so much is the self-clarity and the awareness that he has about himself. Sahil, you're very welcome to this episode, and I'm very, very excited to dive deep into this conversation and to also understand how has your sleep been throughout the sleep gym. Is this like your third or fourth podcast this month, or like how frequently are you doing episodes?
See, I think pehle it got very frequent in the sense ki like after Shark Tank I was doing a fair number of podcasts, but now I've like really tapered it down because I think work gets affected because as it is work takes 5-6 days, so then I tapered it down. But I think like I'm doing one today, and one is a friend who really was pushing me to do one tomorrow, so I have to do one tomorrow as well. So yeah, I was with Gaurav. Gaurav was the one who kind of hosted me here. So
Acha,
yeah, they
okay.
were also very persistent ki करना है basically. So yeah, so I don't do it very often, to be honest. But I only take up like 30% of outreaches because work affect हो रहा था मेरे लिए basically. But with friends or people who I've known, I do it with them basically. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm like very grateful that you're doing this
No.
for your time also, Sahil. And I know you're very busy, but thank you for being here. And
No. Thank you so much. You've helped me out so much with my sleep. It's been very helpful. So I had to come over. So yeah.
speaking
Goes
of
without
sleep,
saying.
how has your sleep been? The
पहले
age-old
मैं
question.
वैसा था. Yeah.
But on a serious note,
Yeah.
how has sleep been since we've sort of finished the program?
No, it's been very nice actually. Like I think I've realized that my day does not start after I wake up. It starts when I sleep the day prior, basically, right? That's been my major learning. Like I think realizing that you have to give yourself some time to sleep and fall asleep, and then be very punctual in terms of the time that you sleep, and give yourself an X number of hours of sleep where your cognitive behavior is good. I think these have been very small learnings that I've had, and I really prioritize those things. And I think my performance in general has been a lot better since we spoke last. I think just generally I feel that obviously practices help, but when you start documenting itself, you realize the mess that there is basically, right? So once you kind of know कि इतना messy है, so then you know what to improve eventually. So yeah, I think on those fronts, I think there's been significant improvements. Yeah, and I see like the outcome also showing a lot better in terms of productivity, my relationships in general. So yeah,
That's good to know.
yeah,
And like how is the duration right now? Are you getting your 7 minimum?
yeah. I think I'm touching 7 minimum consistently. So how I've kind of planned is like, I think one input that you gave was to have just one alarm. I think it was a very small insight, but a very important one. It was to take a genuine buffer in terms of number of hours that I put my alarm on. So now it's like if I have to sleep 7 hours, then 25 minutes is the average time that somebody takes to fall asleep. Um, then I give myself maybe 8 hours of a window from the moment I sleep to the alarm that's there, basically, right? So just keep giving yourself that buffer helps you assure that you're definitely getting at least 7 hours. वो मैं सब पहले नहीं कर रहा था basically. So what I was saying was that I sleep at 1:30, I will wake up by 8:30, right? But अब उस प्रोसेस में क्या 25 minutes तो मैं सोने में लगा रहा हूँ, right? So then the moment it goes down, if I fall asleep in 25 minutes and then it takes me some time to adjust वगैरह, तो then it's in the 6 to 7 hour range, then my performance gets affected basically. So I think it's been the constant learning has been that 7 is like a sweet spot where I perform really well. So I avoid going to the 6 mark or 5.5 mark. I think those small like things that we worked on together really helped me overall in terms of performance. Yeah.
That's great. And
Yeah.
like you mentioned, just keeping that buffer time, it's such a small thing,
Yeah.
but it just uh, it's actually a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what we do usually is that we keep a very strict 8 hour window. तो उस 8 घंटे में क्या होता है कि 1 घंटा तो नींद में जाने में ही लग जाता है. So a lot of people, just for this reason, are also not able to get their
Yeah.
optimum sleep duration.
Correct.
And but I'm glad to know that you're thinking this way, and
Right.
I feel that a lot of the beliefs that you've had, they've changed over the whole course of the program. And I think like sleep generally is also, it's so much, it has so much to do with beliefs that we have.
Yeah.
It's not like we did something phenomenal or extraordinary. Like just very simple decision making makes a huge difference.
Correct.
Like that single alarm. One alarm is actually enough to wake you up. That's enough to train your circadian rhythm to also just get attuned to a certain time window and wake you up anyway. So
Correct.
I'm glad that you're able to stick to it. And
Right.
speaking of beliefs, there's something that I would like your insight on, which is that you and I, we are both millennials living in India, where hustle culture has been for at least 30-40 years.
Yeah.
So we've grown up with this belief being ingrained that we have to put in the hours, we have to we have to work, give our best. And the moment that we see someone, whether it's a child, teenager, prioritizing sleep, it's often equated with laziness. That if someone is giving enough time to sleep, it does get misinterpreted as a sign of laziness or a sign of weakness also
Yeah.
indirectly.
Yeah.
So how do you think, like, how much do you think is this true in terms of, how hustle culture, it has trained us to do our best where sleep is not prioritized enough? And do you think this is something that has happened to you as well as you've grown up?
Yeah, Chavi, I think I can very clearly recall instances from my maybe college days till now where somebody has taken pride in not sleeping enough for X number of days to achieve a certain outcome, right? Like I
Right.
think it's always a thing in college कि तू कितने कम घंटे सोया और फिर still despite that you were able to pull off an exam. Or I remember that there was this developer who was giving a seminar who was maybe 26, 27. I was 18, 19 then, who was taking pride that I didn't sleep for 48 hours while I was coding this, right? So, and I think, and it's not just about hustle culture, right? Like, when we party or when we go out with friends and family, it is celebrated that you slept at 5 o'clock and then you were up the next morning by 9, 10 and still were able to catch up on work. And those small instances really stay with us at a deeper level. Ki, the people who are like doing really good things are like sleeping very little and still doing well in life in general, right? Like sometimes it's even the celebrities. I think somebody who I really look up to, Shah Rukh Khan, has said so many times, I stay for 4 5 hours, but still I'm able to work in a certain manner, right? So, um, and when these instances keep coming to us on a regular basis, we think that that's the normal, or that's what one should look up to in terms of practices, right? And you don't realize how bad an impact it's having on you, not just in terms of how well you're performing or how poorly you're performing, but also in terms of your overall health in general, right? Like I think before we started working, because I'm coincidentally in the healthcare background, I did read about the negative impacts you can have with lack of sleep in terms of inflammation in the body, chronic ailments can happen, right? So I think that's hustle culture becomes synonymous to lack of sleep, poor eating, and still doing okay, and that's the cool thing. But I've come to realize that if you're able to kind of sleep well, I think the outcomes will take care of themselves if you do that right. So yeah.
Absolutely. What I feel, and I think you might agree to, is um, a lot of people sleep for shorter durations because they think they have more time to work.
Hmm.
But somewhere that short sleep does impact
Yeah.
quality of life, quality of your output, which I think is actually the game changer when it comes to you as a founder as well.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like the uh, on days when you haven't slept enough, it does
Hmm.
impact the quality of your work? And if yes, then how?
Yeah, I think Chavi, I've in the last couple of years, I've and more so when we started working as well, I think I've very clearly documented and seen my outcomes in terms of overall performance um, and perform. What are the various aspects of performance? What do I mean
Mm.
by good performance is how present are you in conversations first and foremost, right? Like, do you feel any heaviness in your head or not? Are you able to actually do 1 hour of work if you're sitting? What is the quality of work that you're doing? How focused are you? Do you work out well or not, right? The quality of food that you crave in general. uh, those small things I've seen, the kind of control that I have in myself in general, right? Like, can I like control my urges in general, right? Those small things see a significant improvement the moment I sleep well the day prior, basically, right? And I've seen this time and again happen to me. That the moment I go less than 7 hours, I know that my cognitive performance will not be as good as the moment I cross that 7 hour mark, right? And I've tested this for myself with maybe 8 hours, 7 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours. And scientifically speaking, you need different number of hours of sleep at different ages in your life. But at the current age or at the current phase of my life, I think a 7 hour window really works wonders for me in terms of my outcomes in general, right? So I take it very seriously that I'm able to at least get those 7 hours of continuous sleep for my next day to actually go well. Otherwise, I know it's going for a toss. So yeah.
Has there ever been a phase in the past where, for whatever reason, you have not been able to catch on those 7 hours of sleep for a very long time, and that has impacted you?
I think we do get spikes at work, but I feel that apart from maybe I think that maybe those 2 3 week spikes, I don't feel there are major situations where accommodating that 7 hours of sleep is too difficult a task, right? Um, like I would probably say that I would rather cut down on maybe half an hour of my workout, but not cut down on my sleep. That's how I rate importance of sleep in general, basically, right? So for me, it's like whenever I have those spikes, the spikes don't come at a cost of me skipping my sleep now, or maybe previously as well. It comes at a cost of maybe doing slightly lesser of workout, maybe less number of hours on reels, for that matter, less number of hours in leisure. We underestimate the amount of time that we spend in so much useless stuff in general. So, I've figured out a way to kind of cut down on that, then cut down on, half an hour of sleep basically. So I think again, as I said, that if I have a spike in work, that also needs me to be very very attentive, right? So I can't be suboptimal. So for me, it's very important to kind of get that sleep to be high performance in those 12, 13 hours of being productive at work. So yeah,
I think recovery is quite crucial to you as
yeah,
as a founder and I mean as a person as well.
yeah.
Um, if I be honest with you, this attitude where you're so pro sleep, it's actually quite rare within the founder community. And this is something we figured out by talking to so many of them,
Yeah,
raising awareness on why sleep is important.
yeah.
A lot of founders out there have this attitude, which is that I don't have time to sleep.
Hmm.
It's like a permanent, belief system.
Yeah.
How do you think will that affect, uh, a person who's building something
Hmm.
in the long run? If, like, do you feel that is it even possible to become successful if you're never prioritizing rest?
I think for some people it does work well, but I think, as you said, if you are building in the long run, it will have negative impact, right? Like for
Mm.
example, I can probably, for example, talk about a male founder, for example,
Mm.
where he's working too hard. His testosterone is going to dip.
Mm.
His rigor is going to
Mm.
dip. He's going to see inflammation in his body in general, right? Now those things might look tempting in the short run, but even if you kind of build X number of outcomes, you can
Mm.
still comfortably work for 9 to 10 hours or 11 hours,
Mm.
and work maybe 6 days a week, and get those 50, 60, 70 hours of work
Mm.
despite sleeping, right? So I actually see no reason for somebody to not sleep enough basically, right? Unless until you have to really sound cool in a story and you think this is
Mm.
the version of cool. It just doesn't make sense to me actually, right? Like I think things like alcohol or sleep, I think one-off cases is obviously fine, but
Mm.
overdoing any of this doesn't make you sound cool, is not sustainable in the long run, and lack of it
Mm.
will do no great impact in terms of even if your work basically, right? Like cutting out of
Mm.
2 hours of sleep will mean 10 or 11 hours of mediocre work, or suboptimal work, right? You might be
Mm.
able to do work well for maybe 2 3 hours or 2 3 weeks, but it's going to kind of show eventually. So but I think one thing that I've also realized is that you need to very clearly know what is the number of hours that you need for optimal
Mm.
work in general, right? So this is a very subjective call, but one
Mm.
needs to really experiment and see what's the sweet spot that
Mm.
works for you, right? So if you know that, like, please hit that as regularly as possible, right? Like those outcomes will compound in the long run, right? So, for example, in my case, I experimented with 5, 6, 7, 8, and then
Mm.
came to seven being the number for me. So yeah,
Makes a lot of sense. I think because sleep is such a personal experience, every person is so unique, every body is so unique. So finding that sweet spot might also help you with making other decisions around sleep, like what
yeah,
time should you be going to bed
yeah,
so that you wake up at a certain time and you can start your day. I
correct.
think it makes a lot of sense. Um, there's this saying that millionaires don't sleep well, but billionaires do.
Yeah,
And I do personally also feel that, it is quite relevant.
you're right.
How we approach it, of course, practically will differ depending on where we are
Hmm.
in our work. Um, I'm very curious to understand that, you are building a health-based startup.
Hmm.
How much does that keep you uh, on your toes with maintaining your own health?
Hmm. Right. I think I would probably say that because I end up reading a lot,
Hmm.
it keeps me aware about what's actually going on inside my body.
Hmm.
And I would probably say the four major pillars of optimal health are nutrition,
Hmm.
exercise, sleep, and stress, right? These are the four pillars in general, right? And I think just being in this industry, just being with like minded people gives me a lot of awareness deeper insight, objectivity, most importantly, about what's right literature and what's not, right? So I think I'm very grateful that a career like this gives me the opportunity to speak to people like you, or other
Mm.
friends in my network who give me that kind of awareness. um, Secondly is that it makes, like, I want to live a very long life, and
Mm.
because this helps me take those right calls. But having said that, and thirdly and most importantly, I would say that I can't afford to not look healthy or fat in general, right? Else nobody will take a diabetes reversal plan through us, right? So I have to be cautious, because you are
Mm.
the face of the company, so people look up to you in a certain manner. So you have to be cautious
Mm.
from an external or business standpoint as well. But for me to kind of function well, I
Mm.
think the awareness um, that being in this industry gives me
Mm.
helps me take the right calls. So I make sure that whether it's my nutrition, uh, it might be slightly unhealthy, maybe on 15% level, but
Mm.
85% it's fairly clean. Similar case with my activity, with my stress levels, and sleep happened to me be the last thing that I picked up
Mm.
as a block. I think since 24, or maybe latter half of 23, I've been
Mm.
really picking up one block at a time to kind of fix it. And I think all of them are reasonably important, but sadly speaking, sleep was the last one which I picked up, and I'm so glad I realized it. It was one of the most important
Mm.
ones which I should have maybe picked up the soonest for other calls to take to be better in general. So it's definitely helpful, and helps me take the right calls in general, in, being in this space in general. So yeah.
Mm. That's, I mean, that just brings this observation to my mind from everything that you've shared. Most people in general pick sleep at the end.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think that happens?
Right. I think it's because we don't have a lot of sleep coaches talking about. That's what I would probably say. Like, for example, if you go to Instagram, there are reasonable number of nutritionists who are talking about what you're supposed to eat. There are a lot of people who are talking about what you're supposed to exercise, right? But
Mm.
nobody's talking about, and sadly, the thing is that, in fact, as a matter of fact, both stress and sleep are never talked about as much, right?
Mhm.
Nutrition and exercise are. I'm glad that it's being talked about as well. I think that that's
Mm.
also picked up, very recently in the last 2, 3 years or 4 years more so. But I would say that nutrition and exercise give you an aesthetic outcome, right? Which help you look in a
Right.
certain manner, which is presentable, right?
Mm.
But sleep and stress happen to be outcomes that don't show up immediately, right? Like, for example, if you lift
Mm.
weights for a certain duration, you will have a
Mm.
certain muscle mass which will make you look
Mm.
in a certain manner. But lack of sleep will not show up immediately, right? But
Mm.
it will show up maybe when you're 40, 45. So,
Mm.
technically we call it like a lagging metric or a lag metric, where it's a metric which will show up later on.
Later.
So that's
Mm.
why people never prioritize it, right? But I always tell people
Mm.
that if you just have 1 hour extra in your life, and if you had to pick up sleep and exercise, like, complete your hours of sleep than exercise, because you can still walk between meetings. You can still
Mm.
maybe burn those calories. Maybe 10,000 step will maybe cover around 400 kilocalories of burn.
Mm.
But lack of sleep is going to affect the entire 12, 13 hours in general, right? So that's what I would recommend to people viewing this, is that you know and I think we were
Mm.
discussing this prior to this podcast also, that your day does not start at the minute you wake up. It starts
Mm.
at the moment you sleep, right? So
Mm.
make sure that your quality of sleep is very important. So your day starts at maybe 11, 12 a.m. When you sleep. So think of it that way, right? So it's very important to not look at that day from 9 a.m., but look at the day
Mm.
from 12 a.m. when you sleep, actually. So that's very important.
That's a great takeaway for a lot of people. In India, there is another misconception that how your morning starts decides the rest of your day.
Yeah.
This is something you'll find on calendars,
Yeah.
Google motivational quotes, and
Yeah.
own your mornings and this and that. But today, our lifestyle has changed so much that evening time, night time has become a lot more complex, which means that, we are working till late. Um, our level of activity has gone up in the evenings
Yeah.
as compared to, how our grandfathers were living.
Yeah.
So, because modern lifestyle has changed so much and evening time has become more stimulating in general,
Mm-hmm.
that further interferes with how you sleep,
Mm.
and that further interferes with how you wake up.
Correct.
So, a much better strategy is to start really taking charge of not even bedtime, but like evening time onwards, if you
Yeah.
start to, you
Yeah.
know, get some control on that time. Like, I think we
Mm.
had also discussed on one of the calls that what do you do in the evening after 8 p.m.? If you
Mm.
just be mindful of those activities, that's a significant game changer in the long run as
Correct.
well. And so I would love to understand how has your sleep changed before and after you started Livify?
Right. I think when I started my company again,
Mm,
sadly speaking, I also saw my
mm,
founders work very long hours
mm,
and accomplish well, right? So initial 2 3 hours, 2 3 years of building the company, I would have very volatile sleep cycle in general. Like, and I think it stayed on till the time we actually started working as well, right? Like,
mm,
I would say initial 4 5 years, it's just been I sleep when I'm tired enough. Usse pehle I'm just working only, right? That's what I
mm,
was doing. And the sad part was that um, I was sleeping at very different points in time on different days, on almost all days, right? So, and it showed up when we started to document in general. So my sleep has been very volatile since I started Livify in terms of
mm,
time of sleep in general,
mm,
which reflected in the time I woke up, and then I never had discipline in terms of my quality of work that was there in on consequent days.
mm,
Um the good part was that because I've
mm,
been very sincere in work, I think it never showed up in terms of outcome because I would
mm,
figure out my way to complete those X number of hours of work somehow on good days.
mm,
But I did not have a good sense of predictability about how a day is going to go because
mm.
I was never monitoring my sleep on the night prior. So, that's how it's been for me before I like really started when I really started Livify till maybe a couple of months back as well. So yeah,
At what time during this journey did you figure out that you need to do something about your sleep?
I think I realized that this needs addressal maybe 2.5 years back, and
Mm,
um, I was seeing that my days were very volatile in terms of output. But I think I
mm,
ignored it again and started focusing on my nutrition and exercise. Like I was like, I'll let me like get my X number of workouts and cult done. So this was
mm,
my 2024 resolution key. I'll do X
mm,
number of workouts. I'll eat itna clean. 80% of my diet will be clean. So those changes I did. But my
mm,
realization was there about 2 years back. It got prioritized a couple of months back when we ended up getting in touch.
mm.
So that's where I thought ki now I think is a good time to like really prioritize given the other blocks. At least I have a good sense of awareness about what I'm doing now. So yeah.
Mm. There's something that I've noticed with a lot of founders in their initial few years, like you mentioned, the first 2 3 years, um, is that when they're in that phase of building their company, they um, sleep does get deprioritized.
Hmm.
But do you feel that during those first 3 years, the lifestyle that comes out of building, an organization is by default anti-sleep?
Yeah, I would probably say it's not very anti-sleep. It's just that again, it all boils down to the values
Mm,
that we've adopted early on, basically, right? Like people
mm,
who we've looked up to um, did things in a certain manner, so we replicate it.
mm,
It's like I tell this to people in terms of why were you ragging as college seniors to your
mm.
juniors because they were ragged in a certain manner, right? So pratha chali ja rahi hai basically, right?
Parampara, yeah.
So it's a pratha that
Yeah.
that is just going on, right? So
Mm,
I think it's more deep rooted with the fact that
mm,
everybody's talking about you having to compromise sleep. Till the time you don't do it, you are not a
mm,
founder. Till the time you are not poor, it's
mm,
also glamorized that founder should not draw salary. That's what
mm,
is indicative of the fact that they're showing commitment, right? Founders have to sound cool, sound in a certain manner. They have to be mean to their employees. Now, these are small things
mm,
that we have picked up as triggers from people who we looked up to. So
mm,
it's so deep rooted. I don't think that you get a better outcome by doing 18 hours of work and 5 hours of sleep vis-a-vis maybe doing 10 hours or 12 hours of work vis-a-vis 7 hours of sleep, right? And I think you have to like really see it to believe it for yourself. Like I'm by no means I'm saying that number does not matter, right? I think you have to put in the hours. Like if anybody tells you, because say for example, if a founder is just starting their business and hypothetically there is another company that has already raised maybe 12 crores in capital or 10 crores in capital, they are already way ahead in terms of time, resources, people. So you have the only way to bridge that gap is putting in those number of hours, right? But those number of hours should not come at the cost of sleep. Just make sure that you get that sleep. I understand it might look that you have to give up everything, but don't give up on sleep. Deprioritize maybe some of your friendships. Deprioritize some of the functions or get-togethers that you have to go to. And it's not like you have to give up on everything, but like maybe cut down on those small things. It looks very trivial when you hear it, but you realize that there are a lot of situations where we are just going because we are pulled into them basically, right? Not otherwise, right? So it's very important to be very cognizant of where your time is going and cut that down instead of like cutting down on something as critical as sleep. So that is there.
Makes a lot of sense, especially that point where you said that, how you can move social interactions and other commitments around sleep. This is something that we don't always think about as much when we are making our decisions. In fact, a lot of my friends who cancel social gatherings just for sleep, they're
Yeah.
silently cancelled as well. So
Yeah.
so that does happen, but I think for somebody who is working very hard, working 14, 15 hours a day, and is choosing rest over um, social commitments and knows the value of that rest, especially when it comes to sleep. To me, it makes a lot of sense because you need, your sleep is not just giving you rest today. It's basically deciding how you wake up tomorrow.
Correct.
And for a lot of leaders, people are really building something big and are doing a lot of things using different skill sets in a day. That's like really
It's
important.
very critical. Yes. Right.
That's true. And do you feel that the way that you sleep also impacts how you meet investors, how you deal with them, meet other people? Like, is this something that you think about?
Yeah. I think, as I said, like my quality of interactions improves multifold. Whether it's with investors, whether it's meeting my friends or family, whether it's meeting my colleagues, the energy, the presence that you have, the quality of conversations that you have becomes significantly better. Or how creative I am in terms of things that I'm doing in general, whether it's work, how creative I am, or I like a lot of things, art in general, so how good I am in terms of really putting a lot of myself. It's a very strong function of the quality of sleep that I've had the night prior, right? If I kind of don't give those number of hours, I know the work is going to be suboptimal, right? So much so that I know that it's become like a kind of an obsession that if I sleep 6 hours, then I have to figure out a way to get that 1 hour for me to get the kind of outcomes that I'm looking at work, because otherwise I know that the reason was the night prior. So yeah.
Speaking of creativity, how is your writing practice? Are you writing regularly and
Right now, sadly, I think when we were working, I had become a lot more regular. But again, work has started to demand a lot more again. So I decided that I'll keep my sleep hours constant, but I increased my work hours. So I think, but it's again a temporary spike, which is there for me. And I think it's a good spike. I'm very grateful that we've got a few good contracts, which requires me to put in longer hours. But I think maybe for the next 40-45 days, I'll probably be stretching a bit more at work, but not compromising on sleep. So that's the call that I've taken, that maybe for the next 30-40 days, maybe writing will take a bit of a back seat. But I think while we were in conversation, I think I became a lot more consistent. So yeah.
I have no problems with
Yeah.
this arrangement. As
Yeah.
long as you're sleeping,
Yeah.
the like everything else that's not important enough can get a back burner. And
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you also understand how important sleep is. And uh, I think this is a rare belief in India if you look at the numbers. But I'm sure that a lot of people will start to understand its value over time.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of people outside already are. Coming to the sleep gym, those of you who don't know about it, it's India's first ever sleep mentorship program where we are training individuals to sleep better naturally without using any medicines or supplements. So I would love to hear from you, Sahil. How has your experience with it been so far?
Yeah. So, Chavi, I think my experience overall has been very nice in terms of the sleep gym as a program. I think, as I said, when we started the program, the first thing that I realized and the first thing that we worked on was to document my starting sleep time and sleep time to see what's actually going on. And we had a good deep dive to understand what are the problems that I'm facing in terms of my personal, professional life, um, and what are the various challenges that I face to actually have good sleep in general, right? And I think those first 1 or 2 weeks in themselves gave me a good insight about um, what I'm actually doing wrong, right? And the first
Mm.
insight that I saw was that my sleep time itself is so inconsistent and volatile that in itself needs a addressal. And you very cleanly document it and share it with your clients, including me. And that visual that
Mm.
visual itself gives you so much clarity that this really needs urgent
Mm.
addressal, basically, right? So I think the first thing that you do is to document and visualize and really help the client understand about what's really going wrong in your sleep
Mm.
journey itself. Makes you very aware about what really needs to be done next. And I think over the course of next couple of weeks, when we resumed engagement, was to focus on one challenge at a time,
Mm.
in terms of how do you solve for sleeping at a particular time, right? And a lot of small realizations really helped me. As again, we were discussing prior to the podcast, was that an average person takes about 25 minutes to sleep. So these small
Mm.
insights made me realize about to be able to get that 7 hour of sleep that I'm looking at, I should
Mm.
sleep or initiate my sleep process an hour prior, for me to give myself
Mm.
25-30 minutes to fall asleep and then eventually get the 7 hour of sleep, or putting the alarm only once, with a certain buffer. Again, a very small insight, but really helped me take the right call to put an alarm at a certain duration that I get enough a number of hours of sleep. So these small things, which look very easy to do, but they are very hard to execute, as you kind of go ahead and
Mm.
you were very supportive and kind to kind of help me out in the entire journey to kind of where we are now, where the number of hours are very consistent. And I think the good part about about the program is that it's not like a cut copy paste or a program which is very hell-bent help you sleep only in a manner that the coach thinks is right. So for instance,
Mm.
the quiz that we ran maybe
Mm.
said that 11 p.m. or 11:30 p.m. was the optimum time for me to sleep. But when we started to
Mm.
engage, given my lifestyle was taken into account, and we arrived that maybe a 1 a.m. time would be more consistent for me to kind of sleep in the current scheme of things. Obviously, I can improve over
Mm.
time, but so it was not like we were being very rigid about a certain way of doing things in a certain manner. We were being more flexible about the approach that we used, right? So those small things really helped me make sure that my schedule, my lifestyle is taken into account, and the program or the approach is tailor made to my lifestyle to eventually help me out with the right sleep schedule. So overall, I think it's been a great experience. And I think my quality of work, my productivity has definitely improved, and
Mm.
very glad and grateful that I was able to be a part of this program. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think from all the data that I saw during those 6 weeks, um, you've made significant progress in the way that you've dealt with your pre sleep time. A lot of people get stuck in that half an hour window just before they fall asleep.
Hmm.
Um, the most common problem that we get, especially with individuals who struggle to fall asleep, is that they don't know what to do when
Hmm.
they've stopped work, when they've stopped everything. Like, what do you do with your mind that has so many thoughts, that's just running
Yeah.
with very high energy? So the way that really channelized your energy in that time is the reason that you were able to fall asleep quicker. You could
Mm.
also regularize your bedtime.
I think I call it the art of being alone in general. I think you should be very comfortable being with your own company in general. So calming your mind down. Like if somebody, for example, I don't lose my mind, for example, if somebody gets late, or because I think I have
Hmm.
so many things to do with myself that that somebody getting late by X number of minutes hardly
Hmm.
bothers me, because it's like precious time which I'm getting with myself. Again, that's also practice which I've kind of done over the years. Obviously I've done solo trips. I've starting up itself, is
Hmm.
such a lonely journey. So it's very important to get comfortable with being alone. I think it's a small scale, but that really helped me prioritize the fact that this is a time when I really stay with my own thoughts or stay with myself more than all the external stimulations that life is constantly calling me with, right? So once I did that, I think
Hmm.
obviously it helped me taper my night down at the right point in time, and then eventually sleep. So I think it's a small scale, but maybe can share it for the viewers that if you get a little more comfortable being alone in general, in your own company, don't look for a stimulation at all points in time. It will really help you out in your sleep as well. So yeah.
I completely agree. It's one of the most crucial skills that everyone needs to invest in at some point.
Yeah.
Um, the way that you've invested your time writing, really putting your energy into your hobbies,
Yeah.
I think that really helped you to also lower down your nervous energy, which a lot of people are not able to do today,
Hmm.
because today's culture is such that when we finish work, we'll pick up our phone, we'll start scrolling, just keep the
Yeah.
mind engaged, um, non-stop.
Yeah.
So the way that you've sort of made different decisions is what has really allowed your body to also prepare for sleep.
Right.
And it's a very small change, but just to have a structure in the evening, in before sleep, is what can help a lot of people to wind down and naturally get better sleep.
You're right. No, I think it's very important also. I would say that I think what my learning has been that the number of stimulations that we keep responding to in general, if you really look at it, you'll realize that it's important to have some time which is useless, where you're actually engaging in things which are very frivolous. But increasing that time too much is where the problem lies, right? So for example, even if you're seeing reels, I am very confident that I think of the 100 reels that you see, probably you'll probably remember one of them or two of them 5 days down,
Or
right? So,
just the track of
or
the
just the
reel.
track that
Yeah.
just stayed where
Yeah.
you're just it's purely because of the number of times that you're
Mm.
hearing, right? So compare that with a book or maybe a newspaper or maybe just you writing, right? An offline experience is such a deep
Mm.
experience that it'll stay with you for long, basically, right? So I think it's very important to kind of look for things
Mm.
where a slightly deeper form of attention is required. Some amount of boredom is required, some amount of alone time is required. I
Mm.
think it'll really help you build a better relationship with yourself and your sleep as well. So yeah.
Makes perfect sense. And I'm curious to understand, how has your relationship with screen time been, especially the screen time that happens in the evening or at night?
I think it's come down significantly, Chavi. I would
Mm.
probably say that I do work long hours, but for me, it's like even if my screen time with regards to maybe Instagram has come
Mm.
down, maybe my laptop is still around the same time, but Instagram has
Mm.
come down significantly, or just hunting for information at least in the last 1 2 hours
Mm.
has come down significantly. Even if I'm on my screen, it's more got to do with what am I supposed to do in the next day, where it's not very actively engaged
Mm.
a work that I'm doing. It's more around planning, not very analytical work, basically. That's what I kind of
Mm.
prefer doing in terms of approach when near my sleep time in general. So yeah.
Mm. Oh, I think like I'm just recalling the the calls that we had, and
Yeah.
uh, even we walked through all of these steps, and this was the exact approach that we
Yeah.
were following at that time. And
Correct.
what do you feel has happened ever since you have your sleep has changed, how else has it changed your day, if it has at all?
I think it significantly changed my day, Chavi. I think I think now there is a very clear schedule in terms of how my day is supposed to end in the night prior and how my day is supposed to start. So first thing that has happened is the day is way more consistent. Like there is a sense of predictability that हर दिन मैं इतना काम तो कर ही लूंगा basically, right? And
Hmm.
that's like a big blessing that there is, right? Like I might maybe do 80% as good as I projected my day
Hmm.
to be, but it's consistently 80% or in around 80-90%. And I think that in itself is a very big win for
It's a
me
big
personally. Yeah,
achievement.
yeah. That it's not like I'm sleeping at 2:30 on one day, 1:30 on the other, and then 11
Hmm.
o'clock. And I think when we started engagement, I think I was at a point where, and I think I was discussing this with you as well, that if I switch off my lights and sleep, I know I'm not going to fall asleep because I feel that मैंने इतना तामझाम कर लिया तो अब मैं सो तो नहीं पाऊंगा basically, right? Like the best way that I used to sleep previously was if I get so tired that my eyes are tired enough that they sleep eventually. But now sleep is more of a scheduled thing for me where where it comes to me at a certain time, which I think you told me was called sleep pressure. So I get enough sleep pressure at a good amount of time, and I wake up very fresh. Even for that matter, my need for an alarm is very little. Even the first ring of the alarm gets me to be up, but it's gotten a good number of hours by the time we reach the alarm situation. Sometimes I wake up by myself only, right? So I think my circadian rhythm is a lot more set. My work is a lot more consistent in general. It's more predictable. And I think those things are like very important big wins to me, and hopefully it'll help me a lot in the months ahead as well. So yeah.
I think having enough of confidence and being able to predict what your sleep time will be, uh,
Yeah.
having that sort of trust in your own body that it is going to generate sleep at a certain
Yeah.
time, irrespective of what has happened in the day. To have that is, it's actually a big win,
Yeah.
because that's a real metric of how much control you have on your own health.
Correct.
So to have that with your sleep, and also with your work output, like to
Mm.
know that you can give your 80% best at least,
Mm.
to know that you'll be able to perform well enough. I think that is such an empowering feeling in general.
Yeah.
Not to start your day feeling uncertain about how productive are you going to be.
Yeah.
I feel that as a leader, as a founder, that too can be a very underrated superpower in itself. What do you think about
No,
it?
you're right. It's, I think, investors ask you, what your moat
Mm.
is, right? I think this should be a
Mm.
moat in presentations, investor presentations, that I sleep enough. So yeah, so I think, we talk about what your unfair advantages as
Mm.
founders. So I think hard work, persistence is talked about too much, but, this is like rest is also just as important. Like if you're able to rest well enough, I think your outcome will be multifold. So you're very right. So yeah.
And I feel that it also compounds significantly over the years, because, uh, you know, when you're sleeping well enough, or let's say when you're not sleeping well enough, even if your output does reach a certain level, it's also coming at the cost of health,
Yeah.
which means that you might not be able to enjoy the benefits of your own success, because you don't have the
Yeah.
energy, you don't have the presence to really feel it.
Right.
Uh, a lot of the founders, especially the ones that are above 35,
Hmm.
they share with us that, they have everything that they had, worked for,
Hmm.
but they just don't feel, their, if they don't feel the effects of this, the success that they've acquired.
Hmm.
So that too is somewhere linked to sleep deprivation, especially when it's chronic, been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think I really resonate with your approach to sleep,
Yeah.
how you've been, and since I've seen that how your bedtime has become so consistent, sleep timing in general has become way more synchronized. Um, I'd love to know, how does a consistent sleep window help, like, in other ways, if it does.
Right. I think I would probably talk about, like, once you mentioned, I think before I answer that question, I would probably just want to talk about one thing that you asked was, founders not being able to enjoy the outcomes of their success in general. I think I also want to emphasize that people who are starting their companies, the probability of your company getting successful in the first place is only less than 5%,
Yeah,
statistically speaking, right?
very slim.
So you might have slept for long enough hours, but in all likelihood, your startup is going to fail, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the reality. Even for startups I'm talking about who have been aired on Shark Tank,
Hmm.
who have raised capital, investors have hedged their bets where
Hmm.
they've hedged their bets on 10 startups and they know that 8 or 9 of them are going to fail, and statistically you're going to be one of those 9, right? So before we even talk about founders who are going to reap benefits of their success, 90-95% of the startup founders will have to try again.
Hmm.
So if you have to try again anyway, right, you're quite, and again statistically, people, the entrepreneurs who are successful are their median age is 45.
Hmm.
So it's not even half time when you have maybe given up on trying again, right? And again, because sleep is
Hmm.
such a strong lagging metric in general, if you don't prioritize it right now,
Hmm.
you probably might not have the quality of outcome that you're supposed should have in your 40s,
Hmm.
and you never could last yourself enough to give yourself that third fourth shot when you would have been successful as a founder, as an entrepreneur, right? We are so invested in that first idea that we make it our
Hmm.
life, but we don't realize that in all likelihood it's going to fail, right? And it's a very hard thing for somebody to make peace with, but once you
Hmm.
make peace with that, you realize that you have to give yourself volume of shots, and for
Hmm.
giving volume of shots, it's very important to prioritize your pillars of health, sleep being one of them. So if you last and are still energetic and enthu enough at 45, 50,
Hmm.
the likelihood of you succeeding anyway is going to be a lot better, right?
Hmm.
And I think coming to the second point in terms of consistency, in terms of sleep timing, I think the moment you start being very consistent in terms of your sleep cycle, in terms of what time you start tapering down, what time you actually sleep, what time you put your lights off, do your night care routine if at all you have one, um, to
Hmm.
what time you sleep, to what time you wake up. The moment you have that set, you know for a fact that your day is going to last in a certain manner, basically, right? Like for me, I know that if I wake up beyond 8:30,
Hmm.
my workout will not happen, or a small morning walk will not happen.
Hmm.
Um, the moment that will not happen, it's a ripple effect that
Hmm.
I will not be as good in my first meeting, which starts at 10:30, and then it has a ripple effect that I'm just constantly behind on my day. So it's very important for me to like sleep on time,
Hmm.
or maybe start my tapering down on time to waking up at a certain time, so that
Hmm.
I have certain amount of hours to myself for me to ramp up my day, and
Hmm.
then have some hours to my day eventually to ramp down on my day, basically, right? So that's something has become very very consistent, basically. So yeah.
Do you feel that when one aspect of your day becomes consistent, it also boosts your, your productivity in your working hours?
Yes, of course. I think one very good subject that founders should really study is habit coaching, or habits,
Hmm.
how habits work in general, basically, right?
Hmm.
So even if you've had a small win in your day, first of all, it has a ripple effect
Hmm.
on other aspects of your day. Again, it's been studied multiple times that people who make their bed end up being more successful, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
but I think the deeper reason to that is that people who make their bed have had their first win of making a small accomplishment, and that gives them more confidence to accomplish other things, right? um, I am very bad with making my bed, but what I do is that I make sure that I have some proxy of a good win, and for me it
Hmm.
is like going out for a walk, doing 2-3 thousand steps in my first the
Hmm.
moment I start my day. But that can only happen if I
Hmm.
sleep on time, basically, right? So the
Hmm.
moment you do that, it has a ripple effect in terms of all things that you do consequently. So it's very important to kind of do all of them in order, in a right manner. I'm not saying that you become an absolute robot where
Hmm.
it's just it's just a mundane monotony everywhere. I'm sure even while we were working,
Hmm.
my sister had her first wedding anniversary. Then there was first Lodi that I had to celebrate. I was out for travel,
Hmm.
for the Coldplay concert. So obviously there were spikes that were there, but it did not mean that I'm going to kind of just keep it a habit right? Like, acknowledging that life will happen, but that should account for only like 15% of your life, right? So don't make your life around revolve around poor sleep quality. Just make sure you're good on those 85% of the days. So if you do that, you'll see significant outcomes in terms of sustainable habits and better work quality as well. So yeah.
I think this is exactly what, a healthy relationship with sleep would be. Everything that you stated, which means that there will be days when you will not get enough sleep
Yeah.
for all the right reasons. Right? We don't have, we cannot have control on everything that happens in
Yeah.
life, and there will be events, there will be more exciting things that you should be attending, like
Yeah.
Coldplay concerts and everything.
Yeah.
So, uh, on days when you don't get enough sleep, and the reason is relevant, it's, it makes sense. And if it's just a short term uh, event, for example, losing sleep is okay. It's
Hmm.
not going to end your world. But as soon as that becomes, an ideology that less sleep is fine, that's when the
Yeah.
problem starts. But to have that understanding that short term sleep loss is fine, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be long term, is something that most people are not able to, keep in mind. But if
Yeah.
they do, they probably would not have sleep difficulties
Correct.
in
Correct.
mind. So I completely agree with what you've said, and uh, you've literally defined what healthy sleep should be. Most days it should be, a certain duration, depth, quality. Some days it's okay if it goes for a toss,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's just how life is going to be for
Correct,
everyone.
correct, correct. So I think you
So
very rightly put that, uh, you know, whatever healthy habit you very rightly put that it has to be a good mindset, right? Like
mm,
if your mindset or what you think about sleep as a pillar of health is sorted, I think you will take the right steps anyway,
mm,
right? Like I think it's very important to first realize, what you think about sleep in general, basically, right? Like it is just as much as a priority for you, right? Once you start saying that to yourself over and over again, you
mm.
realize that you will automatically take steps that align around you getting the optimum sleep in general. So very beautifully put. So yeah,
Okay, that's great. I think we are done with the questions and pointers. There's nothing else on my list. Do you feel we should address something else that is more relevant to people, or do you think this?
no, I think we are good so far. I think we covered
Uh,
mostly all the important points that there were. So yeah,
yeah, I think I've also covered everything I thought was relevant. So I'll just ask you a last question
sure,
before we wrap up.
sure.
Um, I think this has been a very insightful conversation today. And before we wrap up, Sahil, is there any one thing that you wish everyone knew about sleep but is not out there?
Yeah, I think this is one thing that I've learned over time is that it's not important. It like I think it's people say that आपको एक certain time पे उठना जरूरी है basically, right? But I
Mm,
think एक certain time पे सोना जरूरी है. If you
mm,
just change the habit if you switch your mindset from wanting to wake up at a certain
mm,
time to wanting to sleep at a certain time, I think your day will get sorted automatically, basically, right? Just sleep on time, basically. That's and I'm not saying that you sleep early. I'm being very careful, right? Like I think the mindset about sleep is that if you sleep at 10 a.m., 10 p.m., you will do well in life.
mm.
Even if you sleep at 12 a.m., but you sleep every night at 12 a.m., you will still do well enough if you wake up at 8 a.m. basically, right? And you can if you can continue to be consistent, I think that's what will help you go a long way, basically. So yeah,
That's very sage advice and very valuable as an insight to anybody who's listening. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a wonderful conversation that I think will wake up a lot of people about their sleep difficulties and help a lot of people understand the importance of sleep. So, thank you once again.
so thank you so much, Chavi, for having me. And as much as I hope they wake up about the need for sleep, I hope they sleep enough also. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. If you're curious about the Sleep Gym, it's India's first ever sleep mentorship program where we train individuals to sleep better, to naturally get good sleep without having to use any sleeping pills or supplements. Your body already knows how to generate good sleep, and we can guide you towards finding that lifestyle that naturally optimizes your sleep and helps you to wake up feeling energetic and inspired for your day ahead. If this is something you would like to try, you'll find the information in the description below, or you could connect with us across Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I go by the name The Indian Sleep Coach. Thank you so much for watching this episode, and I'm going to see you next time.